Could you please share your name?
My name is Sujata Srinvivasan. I'm the senior health reporter for Connecticut Public. Oh my gosh, it's a magical memory. I was a kid, elementary school, and my uncle gifted me my first library membership. And this was at what they used to call a private lending library. I think it was a converted garage in a person's house, and the woman there was doing this out of her love for books and love for the community. They charged something back then. I think it was just a couple of pennies when you checked out a couple of books. And it was summertime, and I'll always associate the Anugraha Lending Library in Madras, now called Chennai, with a world of words that opened to me. I've always been in love with words, and I fell more in love with words then. I mean, this was a small space, and the shelves were packed narrowly, and you could just smell that smell of books that you get in a library. And opening a page, turning the pages and the feel of old paper. Oh my God, it was delicious. And I'm forever grateful to my uncle for gifting me that. This was summer holidays that I spent with my grandparents, and my uncle took me to this library, and it was one of the best parts of my summer. That library was part of my childhood. My grandparents moved from that house, my uncle moved from that area, and we no longer went there. Where did I get my books from? We did not have the libraries that we have here today in the US. There was no third space, no place where you could go, where there was a library provided in a town. So these were private lending libraries. There was the Connemara Library, and I wish I had gone there as a teenager. There's one massive library. It was more like an archival space, less intimate, less where you could interact with a librarian who would just sit down and recommend a particular book, and you'd build this bond. But my school had a library. So teenage years was my school library. And that was a natural extension of going to Anugraha and starting on Victorian literature and the Russian writers, of course. As I think that's when schools where I fell in love with the Bronte sisters and Jane Austen and Mark Twain, who, by the way, despised Austen. And Indian writing. Later on, I started subscribing to what was called the Sahitya Academy Journal because I really wanted to read Indian literature, Indian short stories. And as you know, India does not have one common language. I mean, every state has its own unique language with its own unique script. And I think of English and Tamil as my first languages. I grew up bilingual, and then I learned Hindi. But the Sahitya Academy would send you translated works written by Malayali writers and Tamil writers and Telugu writers and Marathi writers. And this way you got to experience sort of the microcosm in parts of India that form the macrocosm. And you sort of connected that universality of characters with what you were reading in Russian literature, what you were reading, by writers of the great American novel and Japanese writers. And you saw this common thread, that common thread of humanity emerge. What I love about libraries is what they mean to the community and to people who live in a community. I mean, it's first of all, when you enter, it's the space where you know you're going to encounter what you love, books, and that smell of books. I mean, of all the perfumes in the world, I suppose if you could bottle me the smell of books, that would be my favorite. And I love walking down the aisles and a whole shelf of P.G. Wodehouse. Now imagine the joy of that. Imagine the joy of suddenly coming upon an entire collection of Wodehouse. And you enter this world of Jeeves and Bertie Wooster. And you laugh with delight at the absurdity of the class structure. And he approaches it in a playful way. I mean, Wodehouse approaches it. I mean, Mark Twain went head on with his satire and with his social commentary. Wodehouse, approached it with a lot of giggles and laughs. But it's deep stuff. Professionally, I'm a storyteller. I'm a journalist, yes. I dive deep in my reporting. I look at facts. I pore over data. I'm a healthcare journalist. I'm looking into accountability aspects of people running the healthcare systems. But at heart, people connect with stories. They don't connect with data. The data is the backbone, the structure. It's what you build upon. It's the narrative heart, the narrative soul. And when I'm out on the field, and I call it boots on the ground reporting, which is what I love most about being a journalist, I'm out in the community, I'm meeting people, I'm telling stories, I'm connecting with them. And through the story of one person, you tell the story of many. And the craft of storytelling is honed by being immersed in words. I quote Twain a lot because he's right here in Connecticut, the difference between the right word and the almost right word. It's the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. And I'm pretty particular about the space that we have in radio. It's a short time sometimes to tell a story, 45 seconds. Sometimes you have the luxury of 5 minutes. But to tell a story about someone experiencing unequal access to healthcare, someone that is, just because of their race or the economic divide, depending on which side they're on, ill health. And to tell these stories, you need to have a deep mastery over language, over words, about how you communicate, because words are the vehicle that take you from your source to your audience. It's a way of communicating. And that mastery happens over a lifetime. Personally, as a mother, one thing that I did when my baby was a few months old was to take him to the library. And this was about, 10 years ago, postpartum. Remember, I'm an immigrant. I'm an American. I immigrated from India about 25 years ago. And I didn't have a community, family to lean on to say, hey, I'm going to leave my kid here. Can I go and get this work done? Or can I even take a nap? And the postpartum months for a mother can be incredibly isolating. And you need, first of all, a community and a community of moms. And I found them at my local library. Now, I'm a feminist here, so the reason my husband went to work is he's an engineer and he pulls in a lot more money than I do as a journalist, so it made sense for me to be a stay-at-home mom. I decided, and we were able to, that I could be a stay-at-home mom until, my kid turned 5 years old, because the birth to 5 years, data shows, is when, a child's brain develops the fastest, the neural connections, the exploration of the world, the social connections, connecting with words, connecting with everything around you. And it was to overcome my own loneliness and for my child to develop his sensory skills, to develop his verbal skills, to develop his social skills. And of course, I would go to the library. And I was working too. I was freelancing quite a bit. So that kept me thriving. My brain was active. But because I was working from home and because I was a new mother, this community is what gave me a sense of belonging and the feeling that I'm not alone. To every young person listening who's raising a child, the library is where you go not just to get a book home, but you go to build your community. You go to sit in a library chair, stretch yourself out, and soak in to watch your child play with other children. You're watching other parents gently usher their kids to these shelves, and you have a little chat with the librarian. What's a good book for my child? My child is interested in planes or dinosaurs or dolls or fire trucks. And that little chat with the librarian. And let me tell you, I made one of my closest friends at the library. Hema is one of my closest friends, and I think our babies met about the age of 5 months at the library when both of us were at a Mother Goose program. Now, she was taking a break from her career. She was working as an engineer at GE, and like me, she also is an immigrant from Iran. And since we've had many, many cups of tea together, we've had many poetry readings at each other's houses. She's read Rumi to me in Persian. We've taken our kids to parks and playgrounds and beaches, and it's the kind of connections that you make. I mean, you don't go there seeking that you're going to make these friends or you're going to find these books, but it's magical what you discover. I mean, you go there with an open mind, you're going to come out with some darn good treasures. Well, first of all, I do not like giving advice, but I do have suggestions for someone who comes up to me and says, hey, I want to be a journalist. Where should I begin? And I'd say, well, first of all, do you have these following traits? Are you endlessly curious? Do you seek information, beyond silos? Do you like to communicate with people? Do you like working with words? Do you like meeting and talking to people. And what is your core expertise? How many years have you spent honing your craft? Or how many years are you willing to spend? For instance, I'm a healthcare journalist. I have a bachelor's in business. I did a master's program offered by India's leading English language daily in New Delhi in journalism. And then I did a 2 years master's in economics. And I've been on many fellowships, and I have, continuing education from Wharton. It's love and passion alone is not enough. You've got to work at building your knowledge, growing your knowledge, and honing your skills. And you might need to work at a few jobs to pay the bills. So when I first came here, my journalism career did not take off. You don't have that steady paycheck that you have with some of the other jobs, like if you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, if you're a teacher, you do have a steady paycheck. But if you start like I did as a freelance journalist working to build full-time, I worked 3 jobs. And I worked 3 jobs at points where I was putting myself through masters. So you got to be willing to do those things if you really want this. The library, that's where you go to get newspapers. I mean, if you want to be a journalist, you've got to read the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, read good writing, read media on both sides of the political divide, read the BBC, the Time magazine, the New Yorker. I mean, oh my goodness, the New Yorker. I mean, I spend hours reading magazines and newspapers at the library, and that's something that every journalist starting out should be doing. Everything I do starts with respect. When I approach a person, would they please share their story with me? I approach them with respect. And I'm grateful to be able to earn their trust, especially people who are marginalized, especially people who fear systems, especially the most vulnerable. When they trust me with their story, it brings tears to my eyes, because this is why we do what we do, to give voice to those who are heard the least and who are most invisible. And in order to accomplish that, you've got to start with respect. And you respect people, not power. I mean, it's a fundamental thing for a journalist. You can't be in awe of power. You can't be in awe of titles. You respect a human being for the worth that every human being has. I'm a health journalist. I meet patients who've been suffering for years and who suffer. And if you don't see that, if you don't feel that, if you don't have empathy, I don't think you should be doing what you're doing. You should find something else. It's extraordinary that the Hartford Public Library has been in this community for 250 years. We have this saying that nothing is free, nothing in life is free. The knowledge here is free. Yes, it is subsidized by taxpayers, but guess what? What does it create? What does it support? What does it nurture? If you turn to look at the person next to you, in front of you, your tax dollars go to support the growth of individuals in your community. What better legacy than that?
Thank you for listening to 250 Stories, a production of HPL Studios at Hartford Public Library. This episode was written and produced by Christopher T. Brown, sound by Sam Sigmund, edited by Faith Lucas, produced by Lucy Nalpathanchel, and with photography and graphic design support from Hartford Public Library's communications team and the Hartford History Center. For more information on this project, visit www.hplstudios.hplct.org. New episodes release every Tuesday, so subscribe to stay tuned.